Hello everyone and welcome back to Crochet Delight. Today I am going to be teaching you guys the knit stitch. That stitch is this little pattern right here. Not this bumpy little pattern, but this straight pattern that looks like, well, a knit stitch right there. That is the pattern that I'm going to be teaching you today, but while I'm at it, I am going to be teaching you 2 ways to increase, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to decrease. So what you're going to need today is your yarn, scissors, and an Afghan hook. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to start with a chain. It does not matter how many chains you chain for the knit stitch if you're doing just the knit stitch. If you're doing a pattern, then that's completely different. So what you're going to do is you're always going to start off with a base row. The loop that's on your hook will count as your first stitch. And in your base row, you're going to skip that first chain, go into the next, pull up a loop, and do that across. For me, I have a total of 10 stitches, so this is going to be a quick tutorial, but it's going to be an informational one. So pull up a loop in every chain, and remember that first loop on your hook was your first stitch. So, however many chains you decide to do, that's how many numbers of loops you should have on your Afghan hook. Now, to finish off the base row, I never count this as a row. A lot of people count the reverse as a row, but I don't. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and do that all the way across. I still have a cold, so you're going to have to excuse any coughing. But that is your base row. Now I'm going to teach you the actual knit stitch. Now, typically what you would do is a Tunisian simple stitch, which is you take your hook, you go into the first loop, and then you yarn over and pull up a loop. I'm going to do a couple rows of the Tunisian simple stitch, and I'm going to use that as a reference to show you the difference between the Tunisian simple stitch and the Tunisian knit stitch. So when I get to the end, you can see right here that I'm doing my reverse row. And the reason why I'm doing a couple rows of the Tunisian simple stitch is because I really want you guys to see the difference between the simple stitch and the knit stitch, and I might even show you a couple rows of the purl stitch so that you can see the difference between all 3 stitches. So, one final time, reversing the row, and then I will show you guys how to do the knit stitch. Alright, so there you go. See, this is the Tunisian simple stitch, where you have these bars right in the front, and they connect one after the other for each row. So it kind of looks a little bit like a basket weave, if you look at it. But now we're going to do the Tunisian knit stitch. So you're going to go into that first loop, but you're going all the way to the back. So you see that, whoops, I'm way off camera. You see that loop right there where there's one in the back, one in the front? You're going right in between those and all the way to the back, yarning over and pulling to the front. Do that again. Go in like you're doing a Tunisian simple stitch, but go all the way to the back, yarn over, pull up loop. Again. And just keep doing that for however many stitches you have. And for me, that's a total of 10. And instantly you can see the difference between the two stitches. Just so that you can see a little better, I'm going to do a reverse row, which again, typically I do not count the reverse as a row. I count it as you're completing your row. So let's go and do that again. Go in like you're doing a Tunisian simple stitch, but go all the way to the back, yarn over, pull up a loop. All the way to the back, yarn over, pull up a loop. And just keep doing that until you have as many loops on the hook as you wanted. Yarn over, pull through one, yarn over, pull through two. Do your reverse. Sorry, my throat is getting a little sore. But there you go. Now I hope you guys can see the difference. I'm going to bring it a little closer. Right here, rows 1 and 2, that is the Tunisian simple stitch. And then right here, where it looks more like someone took a couple of knitting needles and just did the knit stitch, there you have it, your knit stitch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys 2 different ways to increase. And if you increase, you really want, well, with this next way to increase, you're going to want to do it on the edges. So, as always, this first loop is your first stitch. So, this is one way to increase. I particularly do not like it. We're going to continue doing the knit stitch as I show you how to increase and decrease. So, what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over before you go into the space right there between the stitches, or, well, that's the second way. Yarn over, go into your next stitch to do a knit stitch and pull up a loop. It's very simple. Go ahead and do your knit stitch, going in like a Tunisian simple stitch, but going all the way to the back and pulling up a loop and bringing it forward. And let's do the increase again. After you do that stitch, before you do your last, yarn over, then go into your last stitch and pull up a loop. Now I have 12 stitches on my hook. 12 loops actually. So, just like always, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to go all the way across, and that will end your reverse. And now you can see that your added stitches are a little tucked in there and they look a little weird. So what you do to straighten those out is you do a row of regular knit stitches, or whatever stitch you're using. But in this tutorial, it's the knit stitch. So go ahead and do that. Knit stitch, whoops, all the way across. And as you're going, you'll see in previous rows, see, it looks like there's a gap right there, but I just pulled up a loop. That was your increase. As you're going, you can see that your knit stitch is coming out nice and straight and even, and it looks great. Now, go ahead and do your reverse. And just so that you can see that increase, I'm going to do maybe 1 to 2 more rows of just a knit stitch. And then I'll show you guys the other way to increase. I typically like the second way to increase. For some reason it just looks a little better. And you can kind of see what I mean. On one side, the increase looks really crappy. There's like a whole stitch missing. And on this side, yes, it looks like there's a stitch that's meant to be there. But when you get to this side, it just looks crappy. So let's do the reverse. So you guys can already see the result of that way for increasing. I don't like it, so this is the method that I use. There's a gap right between this stitch right there and that one. In that gap, hold your yarn somewhat tight and pull up a loop, and then go into your next stitch and pull up a loop. So this one you can actually do at any point in time. I think it's a lot better. You can do it right in between each stitch. And then when you get to your last stitch, right in between your last stitch and the stitch that you just made, go in, pull up a loop, and then do your last stitch. Whoops, just lost my stitches. And you can instantly see right there, there is no ugly gap. There is no, it looks weird. It doesn't look like it's missing a stitch. So let's do the reverse. And let's do a row of knit stitches just so you guys can see. And the best part is your loop is right there. It's not hidden in the back. So you don't have to hunt for your increase. Let's pull up a row of knit stitches. And remember, with the knit stitch, you're going in like you're doing a Tunisian simple stitch, but you're pushing your hook all the way to the back and pulling up a loop. And there's my increase. Now I'll do a reverse row so that you guys can see it a little better, because you can't see it that well when it's on the hook. And just like this increase, the decreases that you guys are going to see, you'll be able to do at any point in time. Alright, so right there you go. It doesn't look like a stitch is missing. It looks like you just added a stitch. And on this side, it's always going to look somewhat even. and okay this side. If you yarn over and then go into your last stitch, you're gonna get this gap right here. Right here. But if you look right here, it just looks like your stitch was stretched a little bit. That's it. It doesn't look like it's missing a stitch. It doesn't look like something went wrong. It looks nice. So, those are the two ways to increase. Now I'm going to show you guys how to decrease. And that is extremely simple. You're going to go in like you were doing a Tunisian simple stitch in the first stitch and in the second stitch. And then you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop. Go into your next stitch like you're doing your normal knit stitch, and go ahead and do that all the way across. And at any point in time that you want to add or subtract a stitch, you can either go in, pull up a loop, and you're adding a stitch, or go into the first loop and then the next one, pull together, and there you go, you just decreased. I typically like to do the increases and decreases on the edges. It just makes the entire piece look so much better. Now, here we are at our last two stitches. I'm going to go through the first one in the front loop, and then I'm just going to, since it's my last stitch, go through both loops, and I'm going to pull up a loop. And then I'm going to reverse my row. You always, always, always reverse your row when you're doing the Tunisian crochet. It's how you get all of your stitches off your hook so that you can start your next row. But that is it. That's all you do for a decrease. Go into your first stitch, go into your next stitch, pull up a loop. Do your stitches like normal. That's how I like to do it, is again just on the edges. Go into your last stitch, go into both loops of the last stitch, pull up a loop, and there you go, you have your increases and your decreases. And you guys just learned how to do the knit stitch. And as you can see, there's your knit stitch. It looks nice and straight. It's a beautiful stitch. The Tunisian simple stitch is also a beautiful stitch. I don't think any stitch in the Tunisian crochet category is an ugly stitch. The only ugly stitch I would say is if you're doing an increase and you yarn over to do the increase. Just go into it, pull up a loop, and there you go, you have an increase. And it looks so much better. But there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got some good information out of it. And I'll see you guys next time. So, have a delightful day, and happy hooking, everyone!